Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we'll review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet Nedarim, pages 61 through 67. Samach Aleph 61. We're talking about the Jubilee, the Yovel. The Torah says, "V'kidashtem et shnata chamishim shana." You shall sanctify the 50th year. Shnata chamishim atam moneh. You count the 50th year, but you do not count the 51st year. From here we see that the Jubilee is year 50 and is not reckoned as the first year of the next sabbatical cycle. In other words, it's not the year 1 of the 8th sabbatical cycle. However, Rabbi Yehuda disagrees, and he says, Yovel olel minyan shavua, that the Jubilee does count as year 1 of the next 7-year cycle. So what then is the practical difference between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda? That in the view of the Tanakama of the sages, a Jubilee cycle lasts a full 50 years, and every century there are 2 of them. According to Rabbi Yehuda, a Jubilee cycle only is 49 years, and the Jubilee year is year 1 of the next 49-year cycle, so that in 2 cycles there's only 98 years. The math works out a little bit cleaner with the 50 view as opposed to 49, but that is the basic machloket. Is there a separate and distinct 50th year, or is it part of the next cycle? Samach Bet, 62. Rabbi Eliezer Bar Tzadok Omer, Ased Varim l'shem ha'olam. Do things for the sake of your Creator. V'daber lehem lishmam, and speak of Torah for its own sake. Al ta'aseh litgadel b'hem. Do not use the Torah as a way to aggrandize yourself. Ve'al ta'aseh kordom lahayot oder bo. Do not use it as a spade with which to dig to earn a parnasa. Kal v'chomer, there is an a fortiori argument from Belshazzar. Belshazzar was punished and uprooted from the world for using the Klei Mikdash, which had already been rendered chol, which had already been rendered mundane. All the more so is punishment going to come to those who abuse Kitra Shel Torah, the crown of Torah. So here the lesson is that we learn Torah for the right reasons and not for the wrong reasons, and our place in this world, in the Olam Hazeh, is to study, but not to make ourselves haughty and high and mighty by way of that study. Any arrogance or highfalutin approach that a person develops as a result of their Torah study is wrong. Samach Gimel, 63. They were pressuring a guy to marry his niece. So he made a vow to prohibit benefit between him and her forever. Where he was divorcing his wife and made a similar konam vow not to have benefit. Well, the Gemara says, mutar, they are allowed to benefit from each other, that the vow only existed for the sake of preventing matrimony. Meaning he didn't really care about hana in the basic sense. What he cared about is he didn't want to marry that girl, or he didn't want to be pressured to remarry his now divorced wife. So it's only from the matrimonial angle if there's any prohibition put in place by the neder, not in the realm of basic hana of benefit. Samach Daled. Arba chashuvim kamet. 4 categories of person, it's like they're dead. Now, this is not to be taken too literally, because these people are very much alive. However, there's something missing in their lives, which makes it as though they were dead. An ani, a poor person. Mitzora, a leper. Suma, a blind man. Umi she'en lo banim, or someone who doesn't have children. So we should be very careful not to say unpleasant things and besmirch or look down upon these categories of people. The Gemara is just objectively saying that they have it tough. And in some ways, it's like they're not alive, because something critical is missing in their life. Samachay, 65. Potchin lo min hakatuv. So, if a person made a neder, and we would like to see him wiggle his way out of that neder by way of release, hatarat nedarim, we can use verses in the Torah to try to convince him that if he had known these things, he wouldn't have wanted to make a neder in the first place. What types of psukim are we going to quote? The following: Lo tikom, do not take vengeance. Lo titor, do not bear a grudge. Lo tisnat achicha bilvavecha, do not hate your brother in your heart. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love thy neighbor as thyself. V'chei achicha emach, you shall cause your neighbor to live with you by elevating him up, which is impossible if you have a neder forbidding him to benefit from you. So in all these cases, there is a verse in Torah, a mitzvah, which is impeded by this neder. So we say to the person, had you known you'd be in violation of this or that biblical command, would you still have made the neder? And if he says, had I known all these things, I wouldn't have made the neder, that is sufficient basis in opening with which to do a Tarat Nedarim, release from the vow. 66. Samach Vav. Maaseh be'echad. There was an incident involving a certain person. He made a vow not to have benefit from his niece. Now, there was pressure for him to marry her. And what happened? He didn't want to. He didn't find her attractive. So what did Rabbi Yishmael do? He brought the girl into his home, v'yipua, and he made her pretty. With clothing, with cosmetics, with a false gold tooth. Whatever he did, he made her more attractive. Amar lo Rabbi Yishmael, b'ni, v'zena darta. So Yishmael brought the girl back to the man and said, did you make a neder not to want to have anything to do with her? But she looks so nice. Amar lo love. So he said, no, I never would have made such a neder regarding her. He threw Rabbi Yishmael, so Rabbi Yishmael released from the vow, and the marriage could take place. What happened? Bo'tasha, in that very moment, Bacha Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael cried. Amar, he said, but Yisrael naot. The daughters of Israel are very beautiful. But what happened, sadly? Aniyut mevalatan. The poverty which they endure causes them to appear ugly. And so their innate beauty is not coming out. This story is a classic Talmudic story where someone is rejecting a great possibility in life because of some superficial consideration. But when the superficial consideration is stripped away and the good is revealed, then they're willing to go for it. And that was the greatness of Rabbi Yishmael. Samach Zayin, 67. Na'ara ma'orasa. If you have a Na'ara, a maiden girl who was betrothed, Avihu balam f'nedareha. Her father and her husband together must combine in annulling her vows. Hefer av lo hefer abal. If the father annulled, but the husband did not. Hefer abal lo hefer av, or the husband did and the father did not. And a mufar, the neder is not nullified thereby. It has to be both of them. And all the more so if one of them affirmed the neder. Not just that he said nothing and didn't reject it, but he affirmed it, then certainly that neder cannot be nullified because it doesn't have the combined efforts of the Av, the father, and the Baal, the husband. Everyone have a great week.